Good evening. And a little bit of the radar showed the rain that really hit on the west. Didn't even hit West Lawton, the first start of what we're supposed to get rain. So that kind of whets your appetite to get excited. But I will say this, with all of our concerns for, I know our area, everybody's concerned about where we live. You know, west of us has really been hammered with severe drought, even worse than us. And I noticed the radar was really heavy with reds and pinks over there at Altus and over in that west end of Oklahoma. And as I mentioned in the class this morning, that our God can provide rain. Doesn't take him months or weeks or days. As I said, that whether it was South Texas somewhere, I couldn't remember if it was Dallas or Austin, and they showed these cattle being swept away from the flash flooding because they got 2 feet of rain in 2 hours. Now, that's just opening up the skies and letting it flow. We were never here for the flood, during Noah's time, but can you imagine that amount of rainfall and water coming at one time? So I know that our prayers will be heard, and God knows our needs and our desires, and it's been a really wonderful spring to be able to count on him with that. I know it's not just from an eldership point of view, or even me as in both positions, to want to see the church grow. It's within what we want to try to have happen with our prayers, with our concerted effort of trying to do what we can to seek and save the lost, to encourage, to edify the body as we strive to do God's will. There was, and I told you this morning, it was kind of coming, and this is not by my writings at all. I'm actually going to read someone else's work because it really kind of put everything that I've ever wanted to say down, or a lot of what I wanted to say or to get across, of kind of what our mission should be about more so. And as I told you before, whether, orally, I've spoken all my life, being in radio for as long as I have and communicating, that has come natural. Writing has not. It's been kind of a work in progress of trying to be a better writer. I really appreciate those who can articulate through words, because it's incredible. You can spend time in the Psalms and how David was to articulate his feelings. How I know what I feel, but how do you convey that in words? And how can you do that in picture words, to really tell a story, to really come off the page? And there are incredible writers and throughout history that we all gravitate to, and we kind of like to look at those over and over again. This is kind of in that way of a gentleman, I don't even know who he is. It just kind of came across my path, and I took it and saved it, and I wanted to be able to share it. It's really an open letter to a church of why we're leaving. It's kind of a departure letter. Now, I wanted to present it to you, and I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here to hear it. This isn't going to be a lecture. This is going to be, okay, I hear what they're saying. Is there a way I can improve? Is there a way that I can become better in some of these areas that are going to be addressed? Some that we're going to get our toes stepped on, others aren't really even applying to us, and it's kind of funny because it's not the Church of Christ that's only in this category. As Weldon will attest to, that when we get together as ministers from this area on Tuesday, we talk about our numbers. We talk about aging congregations. We talk about why this is all going on and a generation gap, and everybody's trying to kind of affix to where the problem is, or a stop gate of before it opens up to a floodgate, how can we stop it from ending? And he suggests some things. And so I'll kind of stop along the way through his letter and kind of throw out some thoughts that I've had. But I appreciate you really being an attentive listener, because this is the only way that we're going to really see what the complaint is about church. It's not this congregation or just the church kind of in general. Now, this is an open letter. Dear church, here is why people are leaving you. And then underneath that, a subheading, a hard, honest look at why people really are walking away from church. The writer is called John Pavolis, and I know nothing of his background. I didn't really research it. I really didn't want to know who he was. I just loved what he had to say. He starts out by this. I know the internal terror as you see the statistics and hear the stories and scan the exit polls. I see you desperately scrambling to do damage control for the fence sitters and manufacture passion from the shrinking faithful. And I want to help you. You may think you know why people are leaving, but I'm not sure you do. You may think it's because the culture is so lost, so perverse, so beyond help that they're all just walking away. I think this is the first thing that grabbed me to this letter, because I've heard that. That's why people are turned to deaf ears. It's all because of our culture, and it's so perverse, and people just want to keep on sinning. You believe that they've turned a deaf ear to the voice of God, chasing money and sex and material things. You think that gays and the Muslims and the atheists and the pop stars have so messed up the morality of the world that everyone is abandoning faith in droves. Now you can see why I said I wanted to keep reading, because I think there's a lot of parallel to what people have always said. It's because of this, it's because of that, it's because of fill in the blank of what he says. But those aren't the reasons people are leaving you. They aren't the problem. You are the problem. Ouch. I'm going to get my toes stepped on. And he says, let me elaborate in 5 ways. Now, this first one doesn't really apply to us, but it's really interesting, and I want to bring this up because of what he calls your Sunday productions have worn thin. I've been told to attract a younger generation, you need all the music that you can. Now, I told you it's very interesting in the time frame that we're in, that we, as this generation, and not too far off, will probably see the end of piano. It mostly is gone now for a lot of congregations. It's interesting that when I grew up, you saw a lot of people taking piano lessons, a lot of girls. I remember walking to school, and there would be assigned piano lessons out in the front yard with a phone number that you could come and take piano lessons. A lot of girls in my class grew up being made, and we were told that I had to go to piano lessons. Their mom and dad wanted them to be cultured, and is that something that we see now? I mean, I don't even see it on social media. I don't say, hey, if you're looking for piano lessons, come on down. In fact, some of the churches that I've been to funerals cannot even have an organist play in some of the huge pipe organs that we have here in this community because no one knows how to play them. They have to be automated. It's a computer that plays them now, okay? Now, that's because of taste. Because a younger generation says, let's abandon the piano, and what have they brought? They brought full pit orchestras I've seen. They especially rock concerts, and I call them that because it's electric guitar. Some of them are acoustic guitar, and that's why there's a division in some of the religions of contemporary worship and traditional worship, because there is a gap between the two. And I think we're not too far off where the piano will be non-existent. We won't even be able to argue the piano because they won't bring it. It's something else. And then who knows, 30, 40, 50 years down the road, maybe there'll be something else that comes. It's all to taste anyway, whether the music is. So he says the stage and the lights, and I've seen that. I've seen the productions of some of these big mega churches in Chicago and some in Florida and some on the West Coast that have 2,000 people, 1,500 to 2,000 people that are there in a big worship sense that gets people all in an uproar with this music, and they've got screens on both sides, and it's dark lighting, and it's fancy lighting, and it's like a rock concert, really. And so he says the stage and the lights and the bands and the video screens have all just become white noise to those really seeking to encounter God. Isn't that what we always try to say? Get to the complexity of just the simplicity of the gospel. That's what Paul says. They're ear and eye candy for an hour, but they have so little relevance in people's daily lives that more and more of them are taking a pass. Yeah, the songs are good and the show is great, but ultimately Sunday morning isn't really making a difference on Tuesday afternoon or Thursday evening. When people are wrestling with an awkward, messy, painful situation, stuff in the trenches of life, the places where rock shows don't help. Plain and simple truths of what people say, well, this is what you need to do to attract this younger generation, and to get them in here is what they really want. That's not really what they want. We can be entertained anywhere, this writer puts. Isn't that the fact? Until you can give us something more than a Christian-themed performance piece, something that allows us space and breathe and conversation and relationship, many of us are going to sleep in and stay away. Number 2, you speak in a foreign language, a foreign tongue. You talk and talk and talk, but you do so using a dead language. You're holding on to dusty words that have no real response in people's ears, not realizing that just saying those words louder isn't the answer. All religious buzzwords that worked 20 years ago no longer do. This spiritualized insider language may give you some comfort in an outside world that is changing. I'll never forget that when I went to a clinic posted by Bob Berry, who used to do OU football, I was talking to many of us that, like, I've tried to follow and do sports play-by-play. He says, don't get enamored in all that football talk, because people want to know the score. They're not really listening for you. They're not listening to tell you all these great formations about all the great football knowledge you have. What do they want? They want the score. What's the time left in the game? What's the score? Keep saying the score. That's what they want. And here, he was great at what he did, a Hall of Famer, and did OU and OSU football for many, many years. And he got it. The simplicity of it all. Not these big words. And so that stuff just is lazy religious shorthand, and it keeps regular people at a distance. They need you to speak in a language that they can understand, and I think Jesus did that in his ministry. There's a message there worth sharing, but it's hard to hear above how you speak. People don't need to be dazzled with big churchy words and about theological systems. Talk to them plainly about love and joy and forgiveness and death and peace and God, and they'll be all ears. Keep up the church speak, and you'll be talking to an empty room soon. Number 3, your vision can't see past your building. Something that we've addressed here. You've heard me say it. It's not the old philosophy, build it and they will come. The majority of people that come to church are invited to do so. Not because, and I think we do a great job. Both Debbie and Greg do a great job of inside and out. Our building looks probably better than anyone else probably here in town, because they're great attention at detail of all the good stuff to make it comfortable in being here. But they're not coming for that. They're not coming because we have a nice sign that flashes out some words and times and temperatures, and it's an invitation. And it's interesting, these last 3 weeks, I've been put in a position to open my mouth and invite someone. I wasn't really looking for it. They just brought up the word church, and in fact, which is exciting, and I don't know if it will ever happen, but my neighbor that had passed away, and I know there was some question, they say, that they knew I was doing the service, and they asked me a couple weeks ago before she died, at her request, if I would preside over her funeral, and I said I would. And then they talk about, because he was in Lawton Public Schools and she was, and there was going to be a lot of people, they didn't know that Ritter Gray was going to be able to hold in their small little chapel the amount of people that would come, and they were right, because this place was filled on Friday. And it would have been a lot more than what they could have done. It would have been people that would have not been able to go to the service. Well, what's the connection? I had people ask. We're just to try to figure out were they a member of church here. Well, didn't say that in her obituary that she was, but at her family gathering on the night before on Thursday, the daughter of, the son of hers, her first son's wife, was baptized in the church and studied with Jack Treffinger and went to our Bible chair some time ago. Her oldest son was also baptized in the church. Now, that gave me an opportunity to ask. I said, where are you going now? She says, nowhere. I said, well, why don't you give us a try? Why don't you come? We'd love to have you. Now, whether she either dons it, but see, there's the invitation. And it was remarkable that God has put forth in my life in these last 3 weeks a certain open invitation. I told this other lady that was feeding her goose that her grandmother's house sat right back where our student learning center was. Her name was Little. I've talked to Weldon and Dolores. They said that grandma babysat Cindy and her sister. I asked her. She wasn't going to church anywhere. Opportunity. Now, she's not been here since. I'm looking, and I'm waiting for the day if she takes me up on the offer. But see, that's what it takes. It's those kind of things that are before us if we're willing to just take a little bit of effort. And even though he says in this starting point of the building that when I know we don't have a coffee bar, but the coffee bar and the cushy couches and the high-tech lights, the funky children's wing and the cool teen center are all top-notch. I know some that have pool tables, they have flat screens, they do everything to invite youth, and that's where it's at. It's where we got to, and this is a writer that says, and in fact, all of that costly. In fact, most of your time, money, and energy seems to be about luring people where you are instead of reaching people where they already are. wants to build it, and they'll come. They're coming because of this. They're coming because of this program and this youth thing, rather than simply stepping out into the neighborhoods around you and partnering with the amazing things already happening and the beautiful stuff that God is already doing. You seem content to franchise out your particular brand of Jesus stuff and wait for the sinful world to beat down your door. And your greatest mission field is just a few miles or a few feet off of your campus, and you don't even realize it. You want to reach the people you're missing? Leave the building. That's what I said about the traffic we've seen of people seeing our beloved Goose, that when and wait till she has babies, we'll really get the commotion then. And Pat and I have watched a lot of people, and we've got to talk to some of the people. And that's been a great blessing. Number 4, you choose lousy battles. We know you like to fight. That's obvious. When you want to, you can go to war with the best of them. The problem is your battles are too small. Fast food protests, hobby store outrage, and duck-calling reality TV show campaigns may manufacture some urgency and Twitter activity on the inside for the already convinced. But they're true paper tigers to people out there with bloody boots on the ground. Every day we see a world suffocated by poverty and racism and violence and bigotry and hunger. And in the face of that stuff, you get awfully frighteningly quiet. We wish you were as courageous in those fights, because then we'd feel like coming alongside you. Then we'd feel like going to war with you. We need you to stop being warmongers with the trivial and pacifists in the face of the terrible. Told you it was going to get thick. Number 5, your love does not look like love. Love seems to be a pretty big deal to you, but we're not getting that when the rubber meets the road. In fact, more and more, your brand of love seems incredibly selectively narrow, filtering out the riffraff, which sadly becomes far too many of us. Feels like a big bait and switch, advertising a come as you are, but letting us know that once you're in the door, we can't really be as we are. We see a Jesus in the Bible who associates with lowlights and prostitutes and outcasts and love them right there. But that doesn't seem to be your cup of tea. Can you love if we don't check all the boxes and don't have it all figured out yet? It doesn't seem so. Can you love us if we're not sure how we define love and marriage and heaven and hell? It sure doesn't feel that way. From what we know about Jesus, we think he looks like love. The unfortunate thing is you don't look much like him. That's the part of the reason that we're leaving you. Now, if these words may get you really, really angry, and you may want to jump in a knee-jerk move to defend yourself or attack these positions line by line, but we hope that you won't. We hope that you'll just sit in stillness with these words for a while, because whether you believe you're right or wrong, they're real to us. And that's the whole point. Because we are the ones walking away. We want to matter to you. We want you to hear us before you debate us. It's one thing the church has to get right. We're always quick in a battle and quick for a debate. Show us that your love and your God are real. Give us a reason to stay. I tried to share my heart with you, the heart of me and thousands of people like me who are walking away, to let you know of the damage you're doing and the painful legacy you're leaving, and apparently you're not the problem, which of course is still a problem. I've relayed my frustration with you inside a religious attitude, and you talking about you being the bride of Christ and the blood of the Lamb, insisting that the real issue is simply my biblical arrogance, and suggesting that I just need to repent and get a good concordance, whatever that is. I let you know how judged and ridiculed I feel when I'm with you, how much like a hopeless falling outsider I feel in your often inward judgmental communities, and you proceed to tell me how lost I am, how hopelessly in love with my sin that I must be to be leaving you right now, reminding me that I never really belonged with you anyway. In the face of every complaint and every grievance, you've made it clear that the real issue is that I'm either sinful, immoral, foolish, unenlightened, selfish, consumerist, or ignorant. Many days I'm not even sure I disagree with you. Maybe you are right. Maybe I am the problem. Maybe it's me. But me is all I'm capable of being right now, and that's where I really hope that you will meet me there. Jesus got that. It wasn't get your life right and then come to me. Time and time again, I appreciate all of Brian's Wednesday's classes that has reached out and shown that. Of people that he should not have been in contact with according to the society of the times. The woman at the well. Canaanite woman. It's right down the list we'll go. It's here in my flawed, messed up, wounded, shell-shocked, doubting, disillusional meanness that I've been waiting for you to step in with this whole supposedly relentless love of Jesus thing I hear so much about, and for you to make it real. I hear you talking. I know how much you despise the word tolerance, but right now I really need you to tolerate me, to tolerate those of who, for all sorts of reasons you may feel aren't justified, are struggling to stay. We're so weary of feeling like nothing more than a religious agenda, an argument to win, a point to make, a cause to defend, a soul to save. We want to be more than a notch on your salvation belt, another number to pad your Twitter posts, and the end of the year stat sheets. We need to be more than altar props who are applauded and high-fived down the aisle, pat you on the back, and then forgotten once the song ends. We've been praying for you to stop evangelizing us and preaching at us, fighting us and judging us, and sin diagnosing us long enough to simply hear us. Even if we are the problem, even if we are the woman in adultery, or the doubting follower, or the rebellious prodigal, or the demon-riddled young man, we can't be anything else right now in this moment. And in this moment, we need a church big enough, tough enough, and loving enough, not just for us, so we might one day be then, but for us as we are now. We still believe that God is big enough and tough enough and loving enough, even if you won't be. And that's why even if we do walk away, it doesn't mean that we're walking away from faith. It's just that faith right now seems more reachable elsewhere. I know you'll argue that you're doing all these things and saying all these things because you love and care for us. But from the shoes we're standing in, you need to know that it feels less like love and care and more like space and silence. If someone is frustrated, telling them that they're wrong to be frustrated is, well, pretty frustrating. It only breeds distance. If someone shares that their heart is hurting, they don't want to hear that they're not right to be hurt. It's really a conversation stopper. If someone tells that you are starving for compassion and relationship and authenticity, the last thing they need is to be corrected for that hunger. It's a kick right out the door. So yes, even if you are right, even if we're totally wrong, even if we're all petty and self-centered and hypocritical and critical, and I'll say it, quote, sinful, we're still the ones searching for a place where we can be known and belong, a place where it feels like God lives, and you're the ones who can show it to us. Even if the problem is me. It's me who you're supposed to be reaching. And then he concludes the letter, so for the love of God, reach already. We live in a hurting world that wants to see the difference. Is it living out in our lives? Are we portraying that? Are we showing that? Or are we just playing that? We can get so caught up in it. You know, the Pharisees were one. I mean, we can just go right down the list. But I appreciated that letter for a lot of different reasons. And show that with all the bells and whistles of what church is supposed to be by so many different opinions, The simplicity of the gospel is all what it's been. That Jesus is the way. We just need to be able to show that. I hope that it's been an encouragement to you. Maybe stretch our faith a little bit. Maybe look over again. But that's what it's there for. A lot of truth to what his letter had to portray. And like I said, it wasn't a letter that we received here at the building. You can see that we're all kind of in that same situation as churches are. You can see some of the needs that were addressed that doesn't even apply to us, but the struggling things that they're looking for too is the better mousetrap, bigger buildings with a lot of different stuff to go on with it. If we can be of any help to you, we'd love that opportunity to pray with you and for you. You don't even have to mention what it is, just that you're needing some extra prayers. We'd love to have that opportunity. Maybe you've never obeyed the gospel, and we'd like to have that given to you as well, as saying everything is ready, everything is prepared for that if that's your desire. Whatever your need is, if you'll come now, make it known as we stand and as